Man, this week's song would have to be that song Poison by Alice Cooper. Do you remember that? I'm pretty sure it was about a girl. I'm pretty sure it's about the girl this whole story is about. It's definitely poison, boy. Took me a minute to find the antidote. You guys hop inside and tune in, man, and I'll tell you guys how I ended up in the middle of nowhere in Colorado drilling water wells. Welcome to the Wrecking Yard. I'm Jerry Wayne Longmire, and y'all are presumably still y'all, always with the hope that there's some new ears and eyes. All are welcome in the Church of Internal Combustion as long as you show up with an open heart. Oh man, sorry. That's my bad. I just got back from the gym. I feel there's nothing better when you leave the gym. Boy, it takes so much to talk myself into going, but what? I feel like I could arm wrestle a T-Rex right now because I got little arms. Woo, feeling good. That's all I mean. Let's give a big thanks to our sponsor, Everyone Racers Podcast this week. This week on Everyone Racers with Chris Abbott, Chrissy Matura, Tim Burr, and Mental Ward, it's the Road America Hangover. Last weekend, Chris was judging the race while Mental was racing at the historic track called America's National Park of Speed. Tune in to catch up with the shenanigans, failures, and the race car parade downtown. We'll also go into preview race this weekend at High Plains and Pacific Raceways. If you want our patented E1R virtual track walk, catch the previous episode, Road America Preview. We thank you, Jerry, for your support and kind words. Looking forward to November, as well as I am too, guys. And thank you. That was kind. I really do. I dig what y'all are doing. So, thank you. All right. We're going to do this a little different this week. I've been listening to some other creators, some other people talk, and, getting some advice. And this week we're just going to jump right into it. This is a wild ass story anyways. We're just going to jump right into it, and then we're going to do comments and stuff at the end. So hope you guys have had a good week. It is currently Friday afternoon, about 1 o'clock in the PM. It's a balmy 80 something degrees in the shop, 90, who knows. But we got a little air conditioner cranking away. We're going to do the best we can. But I may be a little ruddy in the face, but that's probably just from the gym. Damn, I feel good. Boy, get some. I went hard today. I don't always go hard, but today I went hard. Got me some cold ice water in my Top Gun cup. You see my Top Gun? It's all foggy. Oh, goose. Anyway, so we'll do the comments at the end, and we're just going to run around. I feel like an old Pentecostal preacher saying, I feel like an old Pentecostal preacher to say that it's on my heart to tell this next chapter, but it was. I was thinking about this time in my life for a number of reasons over the past week. But funny enough, when I sat down to write the story, it didn't dawn on me that this is actually where I was when the attacks of 9/11 happened. This is all the end of 2000, beginning of 2001, and on into the very beginning of 2002. It's about a year of my life. And I'm not going to, I went back and forth about it all week because it's not a high point in my history. Well, it's definitely a high point, but you know what I mean. It's a period of time when instead of learning from Uncle Bobby, I was emulating him, and that just wasn't the lesson he was trying to teach me. But at some point, I just fell into his ways, started rocking and rolling, thought I was him for a minute. Today's episode, of course, about a 1977 Jeep J10. And the Jeep Gladiator pickup design is pretty noteworthy for remaining in production for more than 26 years on a single automobile platform generation. Gladiator was the basis of the first post-war U.S. Army trucks designed to be civilian vehicles and adapted to military use. I think in the mid 70s, they started calling them the J series. But before that, they were like J2000, J3000, J4000, and so forth. And then before that, they were the Gladiator. They stopped calling them the Gladiator. They dropped the Gladiator nameplate in, I think, 71. And then 75, they just started calling them J series. Mine was a 77, which is the year they added the Dana manual 4-wheel drive system, and they offered I think they had a 258 AMC 6-cylinder, or the 360, or the 401 was even an option that year. I think I may be wrong on that, but I think the 401 was an option. The one that found its way to me had the 360. Now, a lot of you go, oh, it's like small block Chrysler. AMC 360 is a different beast altogether. It's a different bore, different stroke. It is a different engine from a Chrysler LA 360, which I'm a big fan of, the small block Chrysler 360 and the Magnum 360s. Great engines. AMC 360 capable of a lot of power. It's a pretty good engine. And luckily, like if you end up with one now, you can actually, it's one of the AMC engines you can still get parts for, because they put them in the Wagoneers, like I think all the way up into the late 80s or something. They were still running that 360 in the Wagoneer. AMC had some reliability problems, I'm well aware. The J series, though, is one of my favorite pickup series that got lost to time. And that's even with my, now well-known disregard for most Jeep products. Chrysler abandoned the J series immediately after their takeover of AMC to keep any extra competition away from the Dodge pickup line. I always think the J series would have crushed the 90s pickup market, but let's be honest, Chrysler probably would have dicked up the whole design by then and probably slapped a Mitsubishi 3-liter in it and called it midsize or something stupid like that. All right. That's enough. That's enough technical gobbledygook, but I want you to know what we're talking about, because a lot of people get confused when it comes to J products, and they confuse the scrambler for the J series, and not Jeep people, but people from the outside looking in. So I just want to make sure you know what I'm talking about. This is a 1977 J10, half-ton 4-wheel drive Jeep truck built on the Gladiator platform. Now, in order to tell you the story of how I found my J10, I have to tell you a few other abridged stories about how I found myself in the middle of nowhere outside Blanca, Colorado, drilling water wells with an old Texas cowboy from Waco named Charlie Pitty. I'm not going into a lot of details of this stuff. These are all stories for another day. But in late 2000, I decided to escape where I was, Houston again, and I ran off to Dallas, Texas with my buddy and my roommate, Don Fish. And everyone just called him Fish. And Fish come from Dallas, Texas. So he was older than me. And the way we met is a story I don't really have the bandwidth or time to get into today, but I will tell it eventually. But Fish was a wild dude, man. He was in the Harley Davidsons, and he liked repoing and towing cars, and we got along. We were both into cars and trucks, and I can tell you, Fish has spent a really long time in the Dallas record business, which is, I don't care where you run records before. If you ain't done it in Dallas, you ain't done it. Like, it's a different. Dallas was a feast or famine and a battle zone. And me and him, boy, we headed up. It's kind of the Wild West too. We head up Dallas with big-eyed dreams and ideas about making some real money doing towaways and stuff in Dallas. Fish had a lot of connections, friends that were still in the business. Did not, it didn't take us long to snap into a spot and get us a spot doing some towing. I am here to tell you that the part of Dallas I lived in is a part called Oak Cliff. If you're a Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, you may be familiar with Oak Cliff. That's where Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimmy Vaughan are both from. And literally, I lived on a little house off Loop 12 in Jefferson, and Stevie Ray Vaughan was buried right down the road from me. We used to go down there and see the graveside all the time. Fish had grown up with Jimmy and Stevie and hung out with them. He was a little younger than them and hung out with them a lot. He grew up right there in Oak Cliff. He's from Oak Cliff. He's a diehard native. He had an older brother named Glenn Fish, who was crazier than any of us and a Vietnam veteran. And Oak Cliff's a real easy place to get out of hand, baby. And I was doing repos and towaways in the yellow zone, and the yellow zone of Dallas is like it's the worst properties. It's the Martin Luther King, it's Sock, it's South Oak Cliff, Martin. And this is all, of course, 23 years ago. So I don't know what it's like now. I'm not that familiar with Dallas anymore. But 2001, Sock and Martin Luther King Street, that was all called the Yellow Zone. I had some adventures in the Yellow Zone doing towaways and repossessions. I was living like a maniac. Living like that can make a month feel like years, especially when you add in some pretty heavy substance abuse. And this was a time in my life where I'm not going into great detail, but I was doing a lot of that. I lost my mind in Oak Cliff, Texas. There was a lot of money, there was more drugs, and even more bad decisions. And one of those bad decisions was allowing my hubris and pride at the time convinced me that I could fix a pretty damaged person when I was a fairly damaged person myself. Not like her, but I was, you know, I didn't know then what I do know now. Now I know that I'm a beacon for damaged people, and I've learned to deal with that. A lot of us are. I grew up around damaged people. People that grow up around damaged people tend to be a sympathetic ear. And I still try to help them, but I'm careful these days not to get too invested until I feel like they are putting in the work. Because otherwise they'll bleed you dry like an emotional vampire. You got to take care of you before you can take care of no one else. Right? I'm sure somebody smarter than me has said that in a much better way at some point. But that's what I learned. And Tori was definitely damaged. She was a dancer, and you know what kind, that I met at a strip club off in the city. And I made the mistake of buying breakfast for her. Don't ever buy a stripper breakfast. They'll never go away if you feed them. Like mugwise. There was never any, like, with me and Tori, there was never any big love declarations. That's how it was. I was coming off nasty. The girl in Wisconsin that I didn't really go too much in detail about, she broke my heart in a million pieces after I got back from Wisconsin. And yeah, I was just, I wasn't really looking for anything. I was just hanging out. Yes, I was going strip club stuff, but I was also DJing on the side a little bit here and there. Me and Fish and other record drivers go hang out. But you're right, you don't go to a strip club expecting anything. At least I never did. It's just it's a freaking spectacle. It's not one I go to anymore. I don't do that sort of stuff anymore. But at the time it was a spectacle. You never go to them expecting anything. You're not looking for a date. You're not looking for somebody to get to know or whatever. Um, so there's never any big love decorations. It just started out like she wanted to go ride along with me in the wrecker at night when I went and did repos and towaways. And as long as I wasn't going off in really bad situations, I'd take her with me. She got a kick. It was exciting. It's fun hauling ass around in a V10 Ford, with a dynamic yank and pull bed. It's fun. It's good times when you're not getting stuff thrown at you and shot at and whatnot. And she started riding along with me while I yanked cars all night. And then at some point, I don't know, some point we were just living together. We were just together, you know. And like I said, all these stories are for another time. I'm going to talk more about this time in my life, but I need a minute on it, some clarity. But at some point, we bailed on Dallas. We got tired of Dallas. And I got tired of Fish. Fish Fish like to call everybody else a liar, but he told a lot of big stories, a lot of lies, and he he sold a bill of goods he couldn't deliver on all the time. Overestimated his value and his abilities quite consistently. And like a lot of times, I left somewhere. I went to Kilgore. Went to Kilgore, and she danced, and I DJ'd at clubs. up in, in East Texas. And the record business at Kilgore was pretty much all owned by two families at the time, and they weren't hiring. So, we got tired of it there. We couldn't make no money. So we headed where there's always work. That's right. Houston, Texas, babe. H-Town, man. I was in Houston a day, had a job doing AAA towing, wrecks, which was way safer than that circus I was caught up in Dallas. That shit was going, you can't. There are guys that do it for a long time, but boy, it changes you. It's not a good business being. It's not good for your heart. It's not good for your karma. I try to be kind to people, but it's a hard business to be kind. And we got us, me and Tori got us a little apartment off Hillcroft, and like Hillcroft and Richmond area, windswept. This is the hood, a little cheap apartment. And at some point, while we were living there, like a lot of idiotic young people, we got high one day and we went to the Justice of the Peace on Chimney Rock and got paperwork involved in our entanglement. I refuse to call it married. The law don't see it that way, but we never had a marriage. I did have to actually get divorced. I did have to hire a lawyer to get out of it, but we never had a marriage. We had a chaotic whirlwind of bad decision making that took way too long to end. That's what we had. At some point during this time period, I decided to quit partying. I wasn't gonna. I wasn't enjoying the life anymore. There comes a part where it starts out and you're the party, and then all of a sudden the party becomes you, and it just wears you down, and life gets thin and gray. And I was in that part. I was going too hard, and I didn't want to do it anymore. I'll be honest with you. I woke up in my wrecker one time under an overpass in Houston, and blood all down my shirt, out of my nose, and I just remember thinking like, this is how you're gonna die, dude. You know the math. You know enough about medical stuff. No, you can't keep going like this. It's gonna kill you. So kick it into overdrive or quit it. I decided to quit. She quit dancing, but she didn't quit partying, especially with her friends. And it doesn't work when one of you quits. It doesn't work. It's. I mean, we always kind of fought and bickered back and forth, argued and stuff, but she was getting unhinged, bro. Like she was getting violent. And I'll tell you right now, I've never put hands on a woman. But there has never been another woman that made me want to so bad. Because she could fight. She wasn't no shrinking violet. She grew up on a farm in Nebraska. You know what I mean? She was stout. The girl could throw a punch. Her life and behavior had made that a necessity. She'd gone through a bunch of, I'm not making an excuse for her, but she had a rough life. She'd been sexually assaulted. She'd had some horrible shit happen to her at a fairly young age, in her teen years. I'm not going to be details about this, but one night we, I forgot what the argument. I think the argument started because I was making fun of the Nebraska Cornhuskers name. I was making jokes about it, but she was on that shit and coming down, and she was, guess, not in a jovial mood. And next thing I knew, she threw a thing of popcorn at me, and she'd been cooking, and I was pissed because she threw that stuff all over me and couldn't understand why she's acting that way. And I don't even remember what she was cooking, but I went in there and I dumped it out. Well, that escalated things. She told me she was gonna. We had a little loft. She was gonna run up that loft. She was gonna grab my computer that I did all my writing and stuff on, and she was gonna throw it off the balcony window. It was an old computer. It wasn't going. It was my only prized possession at the time. So I remember she ran up the stairs hollering at me, and I went running for the stairs, go up there and stop her and save my computer from her. And she picked up my printer, which was one of them old late 90s heavy freaking computer printers, and threw it from the upstairs loft in the most beautiful, perfect arc. She had an arm on her. It made the most perfect arc before impacting with my face, dead on, right as I was racing up those stairs. Of course, it knocked me down and shattered the printer and cut my face all up. And I remember I was trying to get up, and we had been hollering for a little bit, and I guess one of the neighbors called the law. Right there, I went to yank open the door. I decided I was going to leave. I remember that much. I decided my computer was toast, but I had the keys to our car, and I was getting out of there. And I mean, I was having to do some stuff to keep. I would have to take the coil wire off the damn car to keep her from taking off in it, jacked up out of her gourd and stuff, because I couldn't risk, the car was in my name, her going out there and getting in a wreck, a manger, whatever. I just if you've ever lived with a crazy person, then you know what I'm talking about. If you hadn't, good on you. Don't do it. It's not worth it. I don't care how pretty or whatever the hell. It's not worth it. I opened the door and there's an HPD car right there at the sidewalk, and he was already out of the car walking towards me. And he said, "Sir, we got a report of a domestic disturbance here." I said, "Oh, there's a hell of a disturbance here, bro." I said, "She done lost her mind, man. She threw a computer printer, hit me in the face with it." And he said, "I understand." He said, I'm here to hear everybody's side and talk to you guys. And he said, "But you're a big old boy, and I'd feel more comfortable if I could put a set of handcuffs on you, just so I know you're not going to get out of control and do anything." And I said, "No, I was kind of back in my right. I just wanted to get out at that point. I hadn't been drinking. I hadn't been doing anything. So I was kind of normal, aside from this crazy tornado of blonde shit I just went through." Cop sat me down on the stairs, started talking about her, and she took the unhinged, and well, she went ahead and just cranked it up to 11. And the cops knew she was crazy with all the crazy shit she was saying. And the cop's like, "Yeah, I don't know that really adds up, but he's got marks all over his face. I can tell you hit him with that printer." And then she tried to tell this wild story about how she was trying to yank the printer away from me, and it was it was the wildest stuff. She's one of those people when she'd start lying, if she didn't think you believed her lie, the lie would just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's when you knew you had her. Like, and cops are good at that. They listen to people lie to them all day. Everybody lies to law enforcement. They're good at spotting a lie. I mean, the officer, he got done talking to her, and the other officer was kind of making sure. She kept trying to come out there to get to me, and the officer was like, "No, you're going to stay here in the house." And the other cop come out, and he immediately took the handcuffs off me. He said, "You seem like you got some common sense." And I was like, "Yeah, I think I just want out of this situation." He goes, "That's what they say." Cops been through it a bunch. They see that a lot. They see this rotating cycle of relationships like this. And he wasn't being mean. He was just being real. At the time, I was kind of pissed at him. I was like, "I'm dude, just got a printer chucked in my face." He said, "Well, this is the law, and I can't, whether you like it or not, you have to leave the premises for 24 hours. My apartment, my name, but I had to leave the premises for 24 hours." I said, "Well, is there a way I can go in there and get some of my clothes, get my computer, some of my belongings? Because I don't plan on coming back." He said, "I have no problem with that." And they kind of corralled her in the kitchen, and I went up there and got my stuff and loaded my stuff in my little car. And I remember I was talking to that cop right before I leave. He's like, "Remember, you can't come back for 24 hours, so you can't come back before this time tomorrow." I was like, "I'm never coming back." He goes, "Yeah, you will. You two will keep doing this until y'all kill it, until one of you kills the other one." He said that to me. And I was like, "Damn, bro, that's kind of jacked up." But he was just being real. He was just being real. He probably saw this all the time. of course, she doesn't want me to leave. She wants to talk to me, all that stuff. So I don't want to talk to you. That stuff has messed up your brain. Your wiring's wrong. You're not the person that I started dating, hanging out with, and I ain't got nothing to say to you. What you can do is be gone by the time I get back here tomorrow. And if you're not, I'm going to go cancel the lease and move the rest of my stuff out of here and go find something else to do. And then I went back and I stayed at my mom's house. And my mom is a Southern mom. And if you know anything about Southern mamas or have ever pissed one off, then you know she was already studying on ending that girl. And I can't say I blame her. All right, 27 minutes in. Sorry, I forgot to start my watch. So that's what you do. I don't believe in hitting women, but a woman hits you, you go tell your mama. Tell her mama. Especially if you got a Texas mama. Because mamas can fight. They'll go whoop that ass. But she was smart enough, she got her a bus ticket. And she headed back to her family who lived in Blanca, Colorado. Her mom and her dad. Her mom and her stepdad. I went back to my apartment alone. Went back driving that record. Doing that thing I knew how to do. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I was lonely, just getting out of all that, and life was kind of a mess. And honestly, man, I go out to bars or whatever when I got off work, but it was getting harder and harder to avoid the things I didn't want to do anymore. You know, they're always around. There's always somebody that's got some. And she started calling me from Colorado. And she'd been up there a couple months. She'd gotten cleaned up. And of course, her parents were religious, so she wasn't doing any of that mess up there. And I don't know, man. Colorado sounded good. It sounded like a fun new place to be. I hadn't been yet. And she kind of sounded like her old self, you know, before the drugs and stuff. And I fell for it. Bright and simple. I think part of it was loneliness, and part of it was just I wanted to believe that, you know, I'd gotten myself in this situation and I need to figure out how to make it. I didn't come from a family that believed in divorce. I grew up Pentecostal. And you got married, regardless if it was whatever the hell it was, it was supposed to, you were supposed to make it work. And I don't know, I was just, and she sounded normal again. And I think that was a lot of it. And well, I have no clue how to take one of these apart, but my son has we have an old Nintendo Wii system, and these controllers are getting harder and harder to find. This one's just wackadoodle. I told him I'd take it apart and see if I could figure out what went wrong with it, but so far I have no clue. It looks like an internal part probably broke, so this might lead nowhere. So I listened to her. I fell for it. She was doing really good. She'd gotten a job at a farm. That's about all the work there was there was farm work. And her stepdad said that he could get me some work. And I said, you know what? I'm ready for a new adventure. So I sold my car to another record driver, and sold off most of my crap, and caught me a bus trip to Alamosa, Colorado, place I'd never been before. And that's a long bus trip from Texas. I tell you that. I think I've said this before, but I think everybody ought to take one long, crazy ass bus trip at some point in their life and just meet the yahoos you meet on a bus trip, because it's always an interesting situation. And that one was no exception. That was one of the craziest. I've met so many yahoos. I didn't know the deal about this part of Colorado. Colorado sounded good because I didn't know what part I was going to yet. But the San Luis Valley is, whew, let me tell you, that is a different breed of people, and especially the little area I was in. When I got to the bus station, got off the bus, there was Tori with her stepdad, and her stepdad's name was Jim. And Jim, yeah, me and Jim got along right off the bat. First of all, Jim showed up to pick me up in a 1976 Ford Highboy flatbed. I already liked the man right off the bat. Had a 460 in it, and no, it had a 390. It had a 390 in it, and a 4-speed, and boy, it was a pretty daggum badass old truck, man. And there's just no way to get those little things. Jim Jim was about 5 foot tall, maybe 5'1" on a good day, and he had a big old red beard, just big old long red curly beard, red curly hair. He's ruddy. He worked out in the sun all the time. He wore a trucker cap and mirror shade sunglasses all the time, like police, you know. Jim looked like a modern day Yosemite Sam. Big mustache, and funny enough, he was real religious. They were Pentecostal or some version of it. But Jim would get mad, he wouldn't cuss, but he'd get to hopping around and dadgum bastard, gosh mighty. And he looked just like Yosemite Sam. When he finally lost his temper and got to hopping around, he was one of the funniest people I ever watched in life. But he's tough as nails. He grew up working farms in Nebraska. I don't remember how they got to Colorado. Well, I know how they got to Colorado. I'm going to tell you that part next. But they show up in that high boy Ford, and I get in, and I meet Jim, and me and Jim, boy, we hit it off right off the bat. I'm cracking jokes. We're going to see how this goes. And they start driving away from Alamosa to go to where they live in Blanca. And I told you I didn't know anything about Colorado, but I know farm towns. And I knew pretty sure as soon as we left Alamosa, there wasn't going to be shit else. And back then there wasn't. I don't know what there is out there now, but back then I think you took Highway 28 out of Alamosa, and I think it was about 25, 30 miles, and you got to Blanca. And there was just one little store in Blanca at the crossroad there that went towards Mount Blanca. Mount Blanca is the tallest mountain in Colorado, I think. I think it's the tallest mountain in Colorado. And at the foot of Mount Blanca, at one time, and I don't know when, there was this big old huge ranch called, boy, I am butchering all this. Is it the Arrowhead Ranch or the Horseshoe Ranch? It's one of them stupid ranch names. I think it was the Arrowhead Ranch. Huge piece of property, thousands of acres, and for whatever reason, they started selling it off. And you could go, and this is, So there's just that one little store right there at the crossroads, and it was a couple of Dutch brothers that owned the store. They rented videos, had convenience items, some grocery items. Because the closest grocery store was in Alamosa, 30 miles down the highway. And what happened was when they started selling, so there was a little town there named Blanca. There was like some houses and stuff. It was just like a neighborhood, a small neighborhood. But then when you got back there, the roads turned to dirt. And what you had was all these 5 acre plots of land that had been split up. And you had these graded dirt roads that traveled all around the foot of this mountain, all around it for miles and miles and miles and miles. And there was a lot of land like that in Colorado at the time. But what they did is when they sold that land, they decided to list it on the internet. And you could buy 5 acres for $2,500. Now, let me tell you, when I tell you every Yahoo in the U.S. with an RV and a dream saw that ad and thought they was headed to the promised land and hurried up and bought them 5 acres and run out there to only find out there ain't no utilities, there ain't no electricity, there ain't, and that's going to cost you 20, 30, 40 grand to get all that run out there. So they kind of jokingly, this little area, they jokingly called it Iraqi Flats because there were just people just would build houses out of pallets and blue tarps. And people would move old RVs out there and build a house around the RV. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you're from the country, you've seen this kind of stuff. But imagine a whole community of this. It was wild. Junk cars, as far as everybody had about 10 junk cars out there on their property. And just dirt roads. And the county would come out about once a month and grade the dirt roads. So on the edges of the roads, there weren't any ditches. There were these, like when they grade, these little like ramps. And I can tell you from experience, you hit one of them with your back tire going around through an intersection too fast, it's gonna wake you up, son. You're gonna have a little adventure. Everything else, San Luis Valley is considered high plains desert, so it's 7,000 foot above sea level, but it's all desert. It's cactus and rocks and just nothing. The only thing that grows up there is potatoes. There's potato farms all over the place. Sorry about that. Now, Jim, they take me out to their place. Now, their place is kind of on the edge, right before you get to town, right before you get to the paved road houses, still in the dirt road. But their place is nice. They got electricity and they've got septic and they've got water. They have a nice older trailer home that Jim has fixed up, and they've got a tack shed. And they've got horses. They got them 3 or 4 horses out there, and they have like a 10 acre. They bought 2 of those plots. I get there, I get to meet Tori's mom, Carol. Carol's an all right lady. I got no animosity towards her. Very religious. Little too much for my taste. Um, but yeah, and they just had their little homestead out there, and they were doing their thing. And Carol worked with the horses and the animals. We had some lambs, and I forgot about that one. I was right. I'd tell you all the story about me trying to rope a lamb. They had a big old nice poured gravel driveway, and Jim had a little shop out there and tack shed. I think it was built out of another trailer house. They had an extra room that me and Tori could have until we got our own place. I remember Carol pulled me aside that night. She said, "We're really glad you're here. We're glad you're going to try this again, but we don't tolerate violence towards each other." And I said, "Well, that's understandable." And she said, "I mean, even violence towards you. I know my daughter, And that should have, boy, I should have just, if I'd had a brain in my head, I'd have got Jim to take me right back to that bus station right then. But I didn't. I've been lonely. I got no other excuse for it other than that. And it was a new adventure, man. We went out to just kind of see the mountain. Jim took me up the switchbacks and that old 76 Ford Highboy, and it'd do it, son. And Jim was good at driving them switchbacks. I'm talking, brother, you look out the side of that door, all you see is rocks falling, you know. And boy, he got me up and down there and took me out and showed me all the land and, you know, basically said, man, we got free access to all of this. You want to ride the horses, you want to do whatever. Showed me the Elvis Presley church. This is the funniest thing out there in the foot of Mount Blanca in that little community. There was a fella that had started a church based on the idea that Elvis Presley was the second coming of our Lord and Father Jesus Christ. Wild, but you know, everybody, you know, each their own. You know, if you got the bandwidth to preach a message like that, I will tell you this: for as crazy as that it was a big old metal building and had a mural of Elvis Presley painted on it all the side. Elvis doing karate moves and jumpsuits, and as crazy as that old guy was, I will tell you this: every Sunday afternoon there was about 50, 60 cars up there listening to him, and you know, dude knew how to spread a message, whatever it was. I never went and listened. I always regret that I didn't just go hear it once just to see what that church was like. I like Elvis. I'd shake a leg. But it was wild, man. That was a new experience for me. That was country on a different level, bro. You know, you just out in it now. You in the sticks, son. And it was a new place to explore, man. Jim, of course, immediately says, hey, I work for this fella that drills water wells and irrigation wells. It's pretty good work. He pays pretty decent. Guy's name's Charlie. And he's from Texas. He's an old cowboy from Texas. And the other old hand on the crew, he's from Texas too. He's an old cowboy from Texas. Truck driver. I said, man, it sounds good to me, Jim. Jim takes me out to a job site the next day with him. And says, you know, if you don't hire you can take my truck back, come pick me up. But I'm pretty sure he's going to hire you. And he'd already told Charlie about me. And I met Charlie Pythian. Charlie Pythian was a cowboy in every sense of the word, man. He was just an old Waco cowboy. And he was a heavy set man. He's a large man. Had a sweet wife named Juanita, who Miss Juanita was always just just kind as anything to me. I have nothing but good things to say about them. And even though I ended up leaving work for Charlie, I enjoyed my time with Charlie. I learned some stuff from Charlie, stuff that my young dumbass needed to hear at the time. And yeah, they was drilling water wells. Charlie had an old man that worked for him named Dean. I think his name was Dean Wayne or Wayne Dean. I don't remember which way it goes, but we all just called him Dean, I think. And Dean was cool, boy. And Dean drove the big rig. And when I say big rig, we had what they were using to drill water wells was some antique drilling equipment. It was old. It had 20-foot Kellys. It was an old reverse flow mud drilling setup. And if you ever seen one of those, then you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, it's really not that important because people don't really use them that much anymore. It's an old school setup. You have to go out there and basically pump some mud up through the Kelly. You got to dig a mud pit, and that's where your overflow goes. And so we had a backhoe out there for digging the mud pit and Kelly and all that stuff. The drill was all set up on a big 18-wheeler trailer hooked to about a 1957 West Coast International with a turbo. And this truck looked like somebody drug it out of the junkyard. It was missing a headlight and some trim pieces, but the old booger just fired up and run like it's supposed to. And Them old West Coast Internationals were pretty cool. It was a cool looking old rig, and that's what Dean transported the truck from drilling rig to drilling, and we kept it on the back roads. None of it was street legal or road legal. Ran off road diesel in it, and Dean would pour over these dirt road maps and find ways to get to our next drilling site without ever getting on the highway. For more than maybe a couple 100 feet, catch another road. Dean had figured out the San Luis Valley. Water wells are pretty easy to dig in the San Luis Valley. You get just because of the way that mountain was formed, you get about 180. You get about 180 foot just about anywhere in the San Luis Valley back then. I'm sure the water table's dropped now, but back then you could drill about 180 foot, hit black sand and clean water, and that's all we're looking for. We're doing residential, and then we do irrigation wells. Irrigation wells, of course, bigger casing, bigger well, and usually a little deeper because you want to get off in a really deep supply of water so they can run it for many years. Do they still drill wells? I don't know. I've been out of that so long. This house I'm living in actually has a well underneath the garage that I got working the other day. I couldn't believe I got it working. But I know they still got to in some places. I don't know if they still do in that part of Colorado. Like I said, I don't know. That place could be condos and subdivisions now, for all I know. Back then, it was nothing. It was Iraqi flats. It was pallet houses and trailer houses, and people built houses out of railroad containers, but not the cool ones that you see on Pinterest. Just a railroad container with a door on it and a window unit. One of my first days working for Charlie by myself. I met Charlie that day, and they kind of showed me the ropes. They showed me how to. I was basically roughnecking on a water rig. Basically, I was the guy doing the slips and attaching the new Kelly and all that. And they would slide me the Kelly, and I would attach it. And Charlie was the drill master. He's run the drill. Jim was the do everything guy, but he ran the backhoe and ran a lot of the equipment. He'd been an equipment operator for years, run tractors. Charlie's son, Donnie, who was also really cool. He was a little older than me, but Donnie would sometimes run the drill. But Donnie worked with us alongside us too, and he would do slips and stuff with me and move Kelly with me and help me unload Kelly's. Donnie was good hand. I know there's a couple other people out there, but I can't remember who they were. But I remember old Charlie. Charlie would leave the drill running. Just if we hit some hard, like some of that volcanic rock, some of that bauxite and whatnot, and it was taking a minute to chew through some of it. Charlie would leave that drill running with just a little pressure on it, let it slowly slow it way down, let it chill through that rock, and then he'd climb up under that trailer and pull that cowboy hat down on his head, and he'd take a nap for 10 minutes, no watch, no alarm, and then he'd wake back up, get up there and run that drill some more. Charlie's a man that knew his craft. I'm always appreciative of men that know their craft, men that have put in the 20 and the 30,000 hours, masters of their craft. Or one day, I had two stories about Charlie. And one of them I used to tell on stage, but we were drilling this residential well. It's like my second day on the job site, and I always tell people this. Charlie asked me if I knew how to run heavy equipment. I was like, hell yeah, I know how to run heavy equipment. He said, you know how to run a ditch witch? I said, hell yeah, I know how to run a ditch witch. I had never seen a ditch witch in my life. Said before, I thought that was a nickname for my grandmother. Charlie said, well, I got a job needs doing. He said, we need to cut a ditch about 200 yards out that way so we can run, 200 foot out that, excuse me, so we can run the irrigation line. Maybe it's a well supply line. It doesn't matter. I had to dig a ditch. Charlie says, yeah. I said, all right, bub. He said, "You're running a ditch witch like this?" I said, "Yeah, but why don't you show me how you do it? Just so I know I'm doing it the way you want me to do it, you know." He said, "Well, it's pretty, the controls are all pretty self-explanatory." They're not. He said, "Well," he said, "the easiest way to do this is just look out there on the horizon and find you something fixed to look at. And just try to keep straight, and you'll dig a pretty straight ditch for this thing. Rocks are going to throw you around a little bit. It's all rocky territory, you know. Rocks are going to throw you around a little bit, but if you keep heading, you find that fixed point on the horizon, keep going that way, you're going to be fine." He said, "I'm going to run in town, pick everybody up some lunch. When I get back, see where you're at, but you should be nearly done." "Yes, sir." Stuck my headphones in, fired up that ditch witch. I looked out across that desert, and I found me something to look at over there. It was a little ways off, but I could see something out against the horizon. I looked at that, I just aimed that ditch witch towards that, start going. You ever run a ditch witch and rocks, you know what that thing's jerking and jiving. It's like riding a Bronco Billy, you know. It's getting crazy. I'm out there in that hot, and I don't know if you know this, if you've ever been at 7,000 foot above sea level, but you get sunburned easier because you're 7,000 foot closer to the sun. And you can look at me and tell that I sunburned like sun 50. And like second day out there, I had to wear a rag around the back of my neck because I had blisters on the back of my neck from my first day. I wasn't ready for that Colorado sun. Wasn't ready to get fried like that. And that old sun just beating down on me, and I'm running that ditch witch, but I'm hot and I'm aggravated. It's hot work. And I see the road to get down to where our drilling site is. It comes from up around the mountain and it curves down. And I see Charlie coming down that road. I just have to look over and see his truck. And boy, it looked like he was in a hurry. He started hauling ass down to that job site, and then he just drove that truck straight across the field. That old he had a big old Dodge 1-ton dually. That thing just a flatbed, just a bouncing across that blasted field. He was hauling ass, boy. He hopped out of that truck, boy. I could tell he's mad as hell. Yanked his hat off and come stomping up to me where I was on that ditch witch. And we turned it off. I shut it down and took my headphones out. He called me Jay. He never called me Jerry Wayne, never called me Jerry, never called me JW. He called me Jay for whatever reason. That's just what he called me. He said, "Jay, what in the hell are you doing?" Well, I got mad right off the bat. I said, "Man, I'm doing just what the hell you told me to. Told me you need this ditch dug and run this ditch witch and find something out there on the horizon and look at it and go straight towards it." He goes, "What in the hell are you looking at?" I said, "That thing right there. You see it out there? Jay, that's a son of a bitching cow. He's grazing." And I turned around and looked back at that ditch, and Charlie made me stay until that ditch was fixed. I worked late that night. That's why I figured out I probably might go get me some new contacts. At one point, I was working for Charlie Ben. This wasn't about Charlie. This was after work. One day after work, I was these big old 5-acre pieces of property, and Jim and Carol had this old dog named Molly. She's old Shar-Pei, and she liked to drag up stray. She couldn't have puppies, so she'd drag up stray cats and raise them. It was the funniest thing. She'd mama these little stray kittens she'd find. She'd gotten out and wandered off somewhere we was looking for. We couldn't find her nowhere, and I finally seen her just the next little field over, and she started playing like she's gonna run away from me. So I started chasing her, and I tripped. And when I tell you I'm in the middle of 5 acres, there's nothing around me. I'm just in the middle of a field, or in the middle of an acre field, and there's nothing around me at the foot of a mountain in Blanca, Colorado. And I just happened to trip and fall right where there was one piece of rebar, 3/8 inch rebar, sticking out of the ground for some reason. Old, rusty, pinched off rebar with a sharp end. And when I fell, that rebar just hit my knee right at the right part to go right up under my kneecap and lodge in. And I couldn't. I don't know if you ever been stuck like that, boy. I mean, yeah, there's the initial pain, but then the realizing you're stuck gets real scary. I'm hollering and making all kind of racket. Jim comes out there, sees what's happening. Oh shit! I'll be right back, Jay. He runs back to the house. No, he was on horseback. He was on one of his horses. Takes off on that horse back to the house. Next thing I know, here he comes. He's got his truck. He's got his generator on the back of his truck. He jumps out the truck. The first thing he tries is a sawzall with a metal blade, and he gets as close to the ground as he can, starts trying to cut that rebar with that sawzall, and the vibrations are too much. I'm hollering. I'm saying lots of curse words. I ain't that religious. I'm saying them all. Jim's like, oh, well, let's try something else. So he pulls a grinder out with a metal cutoff wheel on it, which is a lot less vibration. But the thing about metal cutoff wheel and friction is it makes metal heat up. That rebar started getting real hot before he got that thing cut all the way through. Well, he got that thing cut all the way through. I just fell over on my side. That was about 3 inches that rebar sticking out of my knee. We didn't know how deep it was in there. I just knew I couldn't move my knee and everything hurt. And I couldn't get in the cab of the truck, so Jim helped me get on the back of the truck on the flatbed, and I ratchet strapped myself to the headache rack. I'm still a big boy, about 220, 230 then. Jim takes me into Alamosa to the local little Peabody, P-Don't, Shitsville, Nowhere hospital. And get me in that hospital. They got me in the hospital. I'm trying to remember exactly how this went down. They got me in the hospital, and first thing happens is nurses come in there, and this nurse, she's just old country. I think she's probably First Nations, indigenous, country as hell. Lived in Alamos all her life. Just rednecky. Talk like this. Hey. And the doctor's from New Mexico. He's from somewhere in New Mexico, and he's not a get his hands dirty kind of doctor. He looks at, boy, I don't know, we're going to get some x-rays this, we're going to figure this out. And he's back and forth about what all we need to do to figure out how to get this. This might require surgery. And that old country ass nurse said, it felt loose when I was getting him on the bed, and she just grabbed it. And when she did, I instinctively yanked my leg back, and it yanked right out from under my kneecap, and it made a little sound. And then the pain really amplified. Now there's a little grit and rust and stuff trapped in there. And then I decided I was going to kill that nurse. And I sure was with my one good leg and my two good arms trying to get to that heifer. If I could have got my hands on her, whoo, it would have been bad. I wanted to put an end to her. I was saying awful stuff to that lady. And another nurse helped them hold me down and calm me down just a little bit. And I was still pissed. I was making plans in my head. Boy, I'm going to get your ass. Oh, get your ass. Oh, let me out of this bed. I'm going to get you, lady. I ain't never going to forget what you've done here. When they were holding me down, they put an IV in me. And they put something in my IV called Demerol, maybe. Femerol. I don't know what it was. I know it took all the mad right out of me. Well, all of a sudden, I was just the biggest sweetheart you ever met in your life. I was in love with that old nurse. Thank you so much for getting that thing in my leg. Demerol changed you, buddy. I don't know where it lines up on the opioid hierarchy, but it's got to be high because, boy, it changed my whole way of looking at things. I was totally cool, and they cleaned that wound out and shot me up run all kind of antibiotics in my IV and stitched up my knee and put me in an immobilizer. Sent me home the next day. Well, obviously couldn't work with a mobilizer on my knee, so that'll work. And remind you, we lived in a trailer house, so go in there and use the bathroom, sit down in the bathroom with that knee immobilizer on. I had to pick. It's one of the trailer houses had a room on each end of it and a little old bathroom, and sit in that bathroom on that toilet and take a do the Lord's business and such. uh, I'd have to take that knee immobilizer and prop my leg up on the bathroom cabinet and sit there with my leg jacked up in there, which is a hard way to poop. I don't know if you probably haven't tried it. Don't. It's messy. It's not great. It's not a fun time. I was having trouble keeping down medicine, so they gave me some kind of suppositories I was supposed to take. And the doctor, they handed me, they were just in a Ziploc bag, and there was 3 of them. And the doctor said, if you get feeling too much pain, pop one of these. So, all right. No, he didn't say pop one of these. He said, if you get feeling too much pain, use these. That's what he said. I didn't know what that meant. Boy, about 2 days later, that knee's healing. Boy, I was in some pain. I mean, my kneecap had been scraped from the inside. I had some muscle tear. And all that gunk was working itself out of the wound, all that rust. And it didn't go in that deep underneath my kneecap. What we found out is it had just basically pried my kneecap up and went just up under, just enough to get stuck. I probably could have yanked myself off of if I hadn't been in so much pain in an awkward position. But I know it was like a day or 2 later. I told Tori, I was like, well, I'm in a lot of pain. Give me that medicine he gave me. She gave me that medicine. I said, how many did he say take? She said, I don't know. Just take them all. We were those kind of people. So I went to the bathroom and propped my mobilizer leg up on the cabinet and run all 3 of them suppositories up there. This day, I don't know what was in those suppositories. I don't know what medicine was in it. I can't tell you anything about it. But I can tell you I slept for 18 hours. I literally went, sat on the bed, fell over, and went to sleep, and woke up 18 hours later. And Tori's like, oh, I was starting to get worried about you. I was like, 18 hours? You probably should start getting worried about me at like 12. Like I'm not a heavy sleeper. 18 hours. You're just going to let me die of a damn butt overdose and not tell me? She's crazy. But she was off the stuff there. We were kind of getting along, for the most part. Still a little bickering here and there. We were both going through stuff. Life wasn't great. Weren't making a lot of money on the drilling rigs, but making enough, get by, buy some groceries. And we got us a little trailer house and moved out there to the property and getting ready to start working on that, building that out. I was just gonna make a life of it in Colorado. That's what I decided. They were horse people. I'm not. I'm just gonna tell you this right now. I don't like horses. I don't trust horses. I'm not horse people. I grew up. I've been around horses all my life. I've ridden lots of horses. I don't like horses. I don't trust them. They don't trust me with good reason. We both got it out for each other. I just don't. I ain't never met a horse I could trust yet. Every one of them has done some dickish thing at some point. I like motorcycles. Motorcycles don't do dickish things. Motorcycles do whatever you tell them to until you screw up, tell them to do the wrong thing. And people say that about horses, but that ain't true. Horses do dickish things. They let me start working one of their horses, old gelding they had, and I'd ride that horse around the property every now and then. It was a good horse. I could tack it, ride it. Wasn't too bad, listen to my commands and stuff. But we started, riding off property, we found out she was pasture sour. She'd been let stay in the pasture. He was a she. I'm sorry, not a gelding. She'd been allowed to stay in the pasture so long she didn't want to do nothing but hang out in the pasture. And you'd go out riding away from the property, and she'd get a wild hair up her ass and just turn around and start hauling ass back to the pasture. I'm talking running sideways, straight at fences and shit. It was terrifying. This heifer bounced me off more crap in Colorado. Damn it, I don't even remember that heifer's name. She wasn't a heifer, she was a horse, but you know what I mean. That horse throwed me right over the front of her one day, ran right at a fence and just stopped dead on. Here my big ass, bloop, 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 right over the front of her. Just hard enough to flip me over that fence and get me off of her. Just some 50. One day we was riding with her up around the mountain bay. We finally got her where we could get her away from the pasture and ride her a little bit. And we didn't shoe the horses up there. We would, anytime they bought horses, they'd usually take shoes off of them because, I mean, they'd shoe them in the summertime, but come wintertime they'd de-shoe the horses because they'd get snowballs real bad up under their hooves and make them trip and stuff. And if you know about horses, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I'm not a horse person. I don't know dick about horses. I've told you what I know about horses. But we got to where we could ride her, get her out away from the property a little bit. But well, I was out there one day. Now you have to understand that in the spring when all the snow melts and runs down this mountain, there's deep ravines. You can look across at what looks like level ground, but don't take off running because you might fall off in a 6-foot hole that you can't see. It's like Wile E. Coyote type shit, you know, just a jagged ditch in the middle of nowhere. And so you had to watch for that with these horses. And the horses, you know, they know the land too. They're pretty good. Boy, one day we was out there in that field and a plastic bag that somebody had thrown out of their car come blowing across that field and made that sound. And I guess that horse decided it was a snake and stood straight up. I don't know how I stayed on that heifer. And then just bolted, bro. And she was just running by. I was yanking on the rein, pulling on the reins. Nothing I could do to get this horse stopped. She was 90 miles an hour towards where she thought the house was, jumping over some of those little ditches, terrifying me. That's the last horse I rode. Was that day. That's the last horse I rode. I said, I'm done with horses after that. We got back there. I was beat to piss. I couldn't hardly walk for 2 days. Oh, I was pissed off at that horse. Jim had a big old horse named Prince, and he was a. I hope I get this right. He was a proud cut gelding, and I guess what that means is they cut them too late or something, so they still think they're a stallion, and they still got stallion tendencies. And Prince was a big old formidable horse, and Jim was a little old fella, and he rode the shit out of Prince. Prince did everything Jim told him to do. They had a good bond. Jim's a good horseman. Carol and her horse, same way. Carol's real good with the horse. Carol get on any of them horses right. Tori would tell everybody she was a great horseman, but I watched that girl get bounced over more fences and off horses, and I ain't gonna lie, I laughed a little every time. I laugh a lot now when I think about it. One day Jim said, "Man, we got the snow's coming. We got to take the shoes off Prince." It's all right. Jim had this other little pickup, his old Dodge W200, show 3/4 ton Dodge, and he tied Prince up to the mirror on that Dodge or the door handle or something silly. And I got back there with him and we eased up alongside of Prince and we picked up the left front leg and I held his leg and Jim took the pliers and pulled the staples or whatever they are and pulled the horseshoe off. And he cleaned up the hoof a little bit. And we did the other front leg. Then we did the left back leg. And the horse is standing right here and the truck's right here. And this is the bed of the truck. The truck's pointed that way. And I'm right here. And I've eased up between the truck so I could reach down and grab this right back leg and lift it up. And I remember Jim saying he's a little twitchy about that leg. Sometimes horses have a leg they don't want you to touch. Apparently, Prince didn't want nobody to touch that right back leg because I grabbed a hold of that right back leg as confidently as I'd done the others, and went to pull it up to my chest. And when I did, Prince just straight kicked back out and caught me in the chest with that hooved, that shoed thing. It wasn't enough distance for it to make any, like, break anything, but it just boop, knocked the wind out of me and throwed me in the bed of that Dodge pickup, flat on my back. I could still hear Jim laughing. Jim was laughing so hard I thought he was going to cry. Damn, Jay. Dang, Jay. You okay, Jay? You okay? I don't know. I can't get no air in me. He helped me get out of the truck. And he's like, yeah, I'm sorry, man. He said, you're going to have a bruise. That's going to hurt. He said, I've got to tell you, Prince got a leg that he don't like messed with. I should have told you. I should have done that one before you. I said, well, you can sure do it now. He said, yeah, you just got to approach him a certain way. And Jim grabbed that leg, pop, and Prince kicked Jim over the truck. Jim hopped up, turned into Yosemite Sam, throw that hat down, them sunglasses down, went to hollering at that horse. And him and that horse, I don't know how long they fought. They fought for, I went in the house at some point. They were still out there hollering at that horse. And he finally got that shoe off, but by God, that was a beautiful little piece of karma there. At some point when we was living out there, one of these guys that had some cars out in his field, and I was looking for something to run around in, a little something to fix up, and had bought myself some tools and stuff as the time went by and helped Jim work on his trucks. And I was looking for something of my own, you know. And I found this guy had this little 1977 Mercury Cougar. It wasn't little, it was a big old house. That was a house cat car. Big old front end. That front end longer than an old car, maybe. House cat car. Boy, I liked that Cougar. It was pretty clean on the inside. It wasn't too bad, you know. He says, got an FMX transmission. FMX is shot in it, but I got this other car got a good FMX transmission in it that'll fit it. And it sort of did. And I drug that transmission out of the other car, drug it over to Jim's house, swapped them transmissions out, but shifter linkages and everything wouldn't work out, so I just cut a hole in the transmission tube where I could reach down there and shift it with my hand. On that FMX. I think I welded me a little tab or something on there. I could put it in park, drive, reverse, all that good stuff, first, second. And that old Mercury Cougar had a little 302 in it, right? And you know, I took all the emissions crap off of it. The air conditioner didn't work, got rid of all that, and found another guy out there had some headers for a 302 and crammed it off in there. And went with my usual fare of AutoZone cherry bombs and straight pipe. But I just dumped them off in the car because out there in Colorado, it wasn't even no state inspection. Nobody cared. I was driving on them dirt roads. I didn't even get it registered. Boy, that thing was fun on them dirt roads. I'd take that Cougar, boy, get that booger plumb sideways. I was dirt tracking everywhere I went. Love that car. That car was fun to drive, boy. I'd get that Cougar, boy. I was a stroker ace, baby. You wasn't going to slow me down. I'd go all the way to the Elvis Church. Wow! Pop a Brody in the parking lot, sling that son 50 back out in the gravel, and boss hog it all the way back to the house, boy. Them folks, they didn't drink, but I'd go get me a little something from the package store every once in a while, and I'd get in that Mercury Cougar, and I'd just drive around the base of that mountain. Wasn't no law out there. Have a couple drinks, and drive around, listen to radio, and go back. After work sometimes. I didn't need anything to get to work. I rode with Jim to work every day. I told you about them graded roads. I caught that Mercury Cougar. I caught that back tire of one of them grades one time and spun that car around about 3 times in the middle of a dirt road, bouncing and whatnot. One day we're over, I was just running around in that car. I was just having fun with it, you know, just doing my thing. And I'd had a Jeep J10 pickup before, and I'd driven one quite a bit, and I like them. It's one, like I said, it's one of the few Jeep things I'm a big fan of. I like them Jeep trucks. One I'd driven was 1 ton. I'd never driven no half ton. And one day we're unloading some stuff at Charlie's house. Charlie had great junk. He had the best junk. He had all the junk. And I just spied around the corner of one of these old trailers this 77 Jeep J10. And it was orange and rusty. I like the one to pick. I just picked one for the pictures. I don't have no pictures of this truck. I just wasn't a big picture taker back then, and we didn't have phones that did all that. But it was rusty. Had a lot of good patina on it. It would be a perfect patina truck. I wasn't into that at the time. Of course, I was going to repaint it, all that good stuff. But and it had been sitting there for some time, and I asked Charlie about it. I said, Charlie, what's the story on that old Jeep? He goes, oh, you thinking you want that old J10? I said, yeah, I think I do. I said, what's the story on it? Well, I bought that Mercury Cougar, I told you, about $200. And Charlie said, I bought that pickup used off somebody, and Donnie drove it around for a while. It was Donnie's truck, his son's truck, and something went wrong, broke timing chain or something, and he just never got around to fixing it, and he bought him something else, and it's just been sitting there ever since. And he said, but it's a good run. It has a little AMC 360 in it, 4-speed. It's a good run little truck back in the day. He said, go holler at Donnie about it, see what Donnie wants for that truck. So next day on the job site, I was hanging out with Donnie, and Donnie raced dirt track cars. Donnie was into dirt tracking. I think his wife was an EMT, and she hung out down at the dirt track too, and she was a nice lady to me. And Donnie said, well, he said, the other day we was out there drilling that site out there by your house, you pulled up in that old Mercury Cougar. What you want for that Mercury Cougar? I said, Donnie, I didn't pay for $200. I was being honest. I like Donnie. We got along real good. I said, Donnie, I didn't pay for $200 for that old Mercury Cougar. He said, boy, that thing sure make a fun dirt track car. So well, I don't disagree with you there. He said, I tell you what, why don't you give me that Mercury Cougar and I'll just let you have that old J10. Oh, hell's bells. I mean, I got to give up my vehicle, but get that old J10, shit, yeah. That's money. That was even a money truck back in. So I said, all right, Donnie, yeah, man. Yeah, I'll make that trade with you. So I made that trade with him. Me and Jim drug that old J10 over to Jim's house, and I also I had an extra 302 for that Mercury Cougar. I gave him that extra 302 I'd taken out of that other car, and I don't know what he did with it, but I got that J10. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna save you the anticipation. I drove that J10 twice in the entire time I had it, and I had it a while, bro. We're moving in. We're getting close to fall now. End of August. And things change up there. Drag that J10 over to Jim's house. It didn't just need a timing chain. That AMC 360 needed everything. So I started using my weekly budget, buy timing chain, parts. Me and Jim would work on that truck. Got it running a couple times. I drove around out there on property. We took it up a couple of switchbacks. It was tough, boy. That old 4-wheel drive didn't slip. It just go, go, go. That grandma gear on that thing was impressive. Fun, but we knew it needed more work, so we didn't drive it too much. We'd bring it back out there, and then Jim was off work for a little while, had a back surgery or something, and while he was recovering, he spent a bunch of time working on that J10 for me while I was at work. I would work on the trailer house. Me and Jim would work on the trailer house. Me and Carol would work on the trailer house. One person that seemed like wasn't working on stuff was you know who. And she did work for a farm off and on, sorting potatoes. I ended up leaving work for Charlie. My knee just couldn't take it. My knee was still recovering, and I couldn't handle that. And honestly, I thought I was going to lose a hand in that dadgum Kelly at some point. We was out there one day. I'll tell you this. We was out there one day, and Charlie was drilling, and we were real close to the mountain, and about 60 foot down, we hit hard, I think it's bauxite, volcanic rock, hard rock. And it was rock that Kelly couldn't shoot through at that speed. And what happens, one of those, with a Kelly set up like that, is if it can't turn, then the trailer just starts jacking up. And I'm talking a big ass trailer, big old 18-wheeler trailer just starts climbing up off the ground, you know, and it's shaking the and I was a slip man. I was standing right there. I was roughnecking. The minute that trailer started jumping, Charlie Pythian said he turned around to tell me to get out of the way. And he said, I turned around to tell you to get out of the area, and all I saw was the back of your feet going through the field. I was gone, baby. When that trailer started hopping, I was done. And that scared the piss out of me. I ain't gonna lie. It took us a minute to unscrew that situation, and it got pretty rowdy. I didn't like that none at all. And it was just like, but anyways, my knee couldn't take it. And I gave Charlie my notice, told him I was gonna leave, go do something else. And Charlie's cool about it, gave him my last day's pay and my last week's pay, and I feel like we parted as friends. He said, man, you might need to go get you a desk job, something like that, until that knee heals up. I'm sure he's a little disappointed, but I'm sure he only hired me as a favor to Jim anyways. I went to work for the potato farm too. The first time, I first went to work for Mountain King Potato Factory, and I didn't like that at all. That sucked. I was trying to load bales of potatoes with Mexicans, and they were just a lot faster and stronger than I was. I couldn't keep up with them, and I was constantly getting in trouble with that job. I just couldn't keep up. It was just hoof it, get it all day long. I ain't gonna lie, I couldn't keep up with them fools. Well, what the farm did is they said, well, we need a guy to drive a potato truck. So I became one of the guys driving potato trucks in from the field. The problem is getting from the field to the farm, you got to go down this steep, is it Levita Pass or Wolf Pass or something? It's a dirt road. And brother, when I'm telling you, when you're in that daggum, it's like a dump truck. When you're in that truck, it's old Freightliner, I think, and you're on the brakes, but it's still hopping down the hill, and you're just looking straight down at this dirt road you're trying to stay on, and potatoes are bouncing off over the top of the truck, and the road is just smashed potato. Yukon Golds, baby. Only the best in Colorado. That was a crazy shit job. I did that for a little while. Boy, you get better handling them trucks. When them old trucks wear you out, there ain't no power steering and shifting, boy. It's a fight. I was getting in pretty good shape driving that old truck. That truck was like a Chuck Norris workout machine, trying to keep that thing on the road and keep as many taters as you could in the back, because that's money, baby. And I got to hanging out with dudes who worked out the farm. We also, I told you, there's the yahoos out there, man. There's just crazy people out there. Well, one of these crazy people was my good friend Billy Colson. Billy Colson and Elkie, his wife, had moved there and decided to make a go of it, but they did the thing everybody else. They was in Florida. Billy had just gotten out of prison. Billy really liked, they lived in Tampa, and Billy really liked RX-7s, especially ones that weren't his yet. And Billy got in the habit of taking people's RX-7s and building race cars out of them and selling them, and Billy got caught. Billy led the Tampa Bay police on a 15-minute car chase in a brown Chevy Astrovan that actually made it on the cops one time. And Billy did some time in Florida State Penitentiary, and that time had made Billy a little mean, because not an easy place for a white boy to survive at the time. But Billy's tough, man. He's a good old boy. I say he's about 5'10", maybe 200 pounds, 210 when he was a little heavy. Big beard, blonde-headed, just wild. One of them wild-looking. You know, them kids from the, like, he actually had a good life. He had a grandpa and everything that raised him and stuff. He just went crazy on his own. But you ever see one of them kids from the country that just looks mean? Billy just looked mean. He had them eyes that were just a little too close together. He had a mean look about him, but he's a good old dude. Me and Billy got along. We had good times hanging out. Elkie was cool. Me and her got along. Elkie and me and her, they were the only people me and Tori's age out there in that area. And so, but they had moved up there in an RV, and then added a trailer house onto the side of the RV, and then Billy had built solar wind generators and a battery bank that would have made Elon Musk go crazy. Just car batteries as far as the eye could see, and they had wind and solar power some of the time, because sometimes Colorado ain't got no sun, sometimes Colorado ain't got no wind. But most of the time they had power out there, juice. They had that little trailer house hooked to their RV, and Billy had him a little Nissan hard body pickup, a little light blue Nissan hard body pickup. And Billy's trade that he had picked up in prison was drywall, and Billy was a good drywall man. Good drywall man. He'd go into Alamosa making some bucks doing some drywall. He'd go catch on with the crew, go sell his own jobs. He's good at it. That's me and Billy's favorite thing, was getting that Nissan truck and just drive around Arrowhead Ranch at night, just drive them dirt roads, drinking whatever cheap liquor we can get from the package store. Have a good time, man. And Billy and Elkie, they like to party a little bit. Elkie had to be careful. Elkie had a hemophilia or something like that, where she got bruised. It would just keep bruising, and she'd have to go to the hospital. She was on some medication, but they were kind of wild. Billy was that one friend I got that he starts every story. Anytime you talk to Billy, every story Billy told was, man, this one time I was tripping balls. And that's how every Billy story starts. Billy liked hallucinogens. He's a big fan. Big fan. I think Billy liked anything that made him feel like not himself, actually. He was a pretty tortured soul. But we had some good times hanging out. We'd hang out with Billy and Elkie out at their little trailer, have drinks, play cards, BS, that kind of stuff. Right before I went to work for Potato King, right there in the beginning of September, y'all know what happened in 2001. And this is the way it went down for me, as I was sitting in Charlie's truck. No, we were out at the site, and Charlie was sitting in his truck. Charlie had a little 5-inch black and white TV in his truck, and he would get out there on the job site, and he'd kind of watch the weather and the news while we got everything set up, and then he'd get out and we'd all start working. And he was set up in that truck eating his breakfast, watching the weather and the news, or drinking his coffee, watching the weather and the news, and he started hollering at us. And we, of course, all clambered over there to that truck, and I got to that truck just in time to see on that little tiny black and white TV that second plane hit the tower. It was kind of weird. I didn't know anybody at New York at the time. I didn't know, you know what I mean? It seemed very distant. It seemed like an attack on the United States, obviously, but it seemed very distant. I was in Nowhereville, Colorado. I was in the middle of nowhere. But of course, you know, if you remember those days, in the immediate days, everybody was worried it was a terrorist attack, or there's something else coming down right after the pipeline. And all those people in Colorado are like, oh God, what if they get caught? Like, what are they going to take out the potato farms? I don't think they're coming for us, guys. I don't think we're a priority target. But Charlie sent us all home to be with our families that day. Charlie was a Marine. He's a good man. And I called my parents because I was worried about them, because they lived in Houston, and Houston is a target. All the plants and refineries, and you know, any place you got a big collection, that's a target. It's a tactical target. So I was concerned. My dad assured me everything was fine. They already knew who did it, and all this, you know, he knew everything. So I worry no more about it. But it was weird. That's where I was. I was in the middle of nowhere, Colorado. And in fact, I remember I told you about old Dean Wayne. Old Dean Wayne that worked for Charlie. Dean Wayne had a 1970 Ford 3/4 ton pickup with a flatbed on it. But it was done up nice. That old Ford was clean, baby. Dean used to build sand drags and race cars and stuff back in Texas. He had a checkered past. I didn't know all Dean's story. I just knew he was an old man that liked his cold beer, and he liked loud engines. And he had built a 390 to the hilt in this old Ford truck, boy, and that son 50 sounded good. I remember the first day he got it in and installed, he brought it over. Now Dean had this old dog named Shadow, and Shadow was an old wolf dog, and Shadow would hang out on the back flatbed of Dean's truck everywhere Dean went. You saw Dean in town, just like Uncle Bobby, his little truck dog. If you saw Dean in town, there was old Shadow on the flatbed. Shadow never rode inside the truck. Shadow rode on the back flatbed. Dean come over and show us that engine one day, pulled up the driveway, the old 390, just a crackling. He said, yeah, it's pretty tough, boy. We got out, we looked at it all, played with Shadow a little bit. Dean got ready to go, little Shadow jumped up on the flatbed. I said, that thing get up and go now. And Dean was backing up. He goes, I'll show you. With big old long gravel driveway. He throwed that son 50 in first gear, dumped that clutch, and laid in that 390. And the old truck twisted up and back up the driveway. But poor old Shadow just hanging on for a thread back there, scribbling and scrabbling all over the bed of that truck before he flew off the bed of that truck. Shadow got on the ground, right up the door of that truck, and Dean said, oh, come on, man, get on the back of the truck. Well, Shadow wasn't getting on the back of that truck. Dean opened the door, get out, Shadow jumped right off in the cab of that truck. And from that time on, I never saw Shadow ride on the bed of that truck again. I think somebody told me old Dean had a heart attack one day driving that truck, totaled it, which, as long as he didn't hurt nobody else, he was an old truck driver, I'm sure that's probably the way he wanted to go out, because he was tough still. Old Dean got me drunk a couple times. He was funny. Dean got me in tequila one night. Oh, buddy. I don't remember why I started telling you about Dean, but I did. So I remember Dean's who drove me home on the 9/11 day, and we just stopped at the liquor store, got some beer, and started drinking on the way home because we were going home to panicky people, you know. When it first started getting cold, old Billy Cole said, okay, they never seen no snow and ice. They's from Tampa. I ain't seen much of it. I'm from Houston, you know, except for when I lived in Wisconsin, I saw a mess of it. But it's different in Colorado on that mountain, bro. It comes down hard and fast, big, thick powder. Everything freezes. Little ponds out there are frozen. There's lots of little ponds out there at the base of that mountain that are just froze solid. One night, me and Billy get a wild hair up our ass, get a couple drinks in it, so we take that Nissan hardbody on the pond. We spend about 3 hours ice skating that Nissan across that pond. And he'd wreck that Nissan all the time, but he had a spare one. He had a spare Nissan hardbody he'd just rob parts off of. And so that one was red and his was blue, and so he had some red parts on his and some blue parts on his. And after bouncing it off the culvert in the pond while we was ice skating the Nissan, listening to, and this is like, man, Billy liked hair metal, so we were listening to, oh man, Poison by Alice Cooper, Poison the band, all that White Snake, all the hair metal, man. It just rocking out, sliding around on this pond for hours at a time. And Billy come over. He wasn't real too good at cars. He'd come over with me and Jim, help work on the truck every once in a while. We had an off day. Me and Billy had some adventures, man. We decided one time, Jim let us take the horses. We was gonna ride up the switchbacks. If you go up high enough switchbacks in Mount Blanca, there's a town site up there called Commodore, and it was a mining town. And we was gonna go up there. There's a little pond stuff up there you can go fishing in. We mostly just want to go see it. Well, unbeknownst to me, Billy had procured some fungi of the magical quality. We ride them horses up that Commodore town site. It's a long ride. Now you're about, I think, I don't know, 12,000 foot above sea level, or whatever it is. You're way on up there and steep cliffs. And me and Billy eat those fungi and decide just to go sit. There's just a little cliff on the edge there, and it's just shell slides all around it. And these little ledges would stick out of the mountain and stuff, and there was one we could get to right there, and we crawled on that ledge and just leaned back against that mountain, feel that old strength at your back, and look out across that valley. Let that fungi do its work. Billy said tripping balls, not me, but we were tripping balls. Looking out across there, having these big revelations, these big spiritual moments, you know. And I hear a little sound over here. It's real light. It's like, if I could mimic it, just like that, a little sharp. And I look to the left right here, and I'd never seen a mountain ram before. I didn't know what a mountain ram was, but you look them up on the internet and look at what their eyes look like. Their eyes look like they got little crosses in them. Goats and rams' eyes are creepy as shit. And I look face to face with this big horned creature who's standing on about this much ledge, about a foot from me. And I don't know where he come from, because there's all these other little ledges. I didn't know anything about this animal. And I'm terrified. This thing is right in my face, and I'm looking, it's huffing and snuffing, and I very slowly turn back to Billy. And I go, Billy, brother, I think it's the devil. Billy looks out around me and goes, yeah, it is. What are we going to do? I said, I don't know. I'm afraid to move. The devil looks like he can kick my ass. Billy goes, yeah, he looks like he can kick mine too. And so we just sat there still with our mushrooms, trying not to let our minds go astray about the fact that Satan himself has just leapt on a rock beside us. And I'm staring at this goat, but if I stare at him too long, he starts breathing heavy and like looking at me closer, and I don't like that. So I feel like he's looking into my soul, all the bad shit I did, and he's about to pick me up in them horns and throw me off this mountain for attrition or something, you know? And back there, and Billy. Now here's the thing about fungi. Fungi can be rough on your digestive system. And when you have the Crohn's and you have a digestive system like mine, they can be real rough on it. My stomach started bubbling and making noises. And Billy's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I think I'm about to shit my pants. I don't know how long we've been there. It felt like hours. It was probably about 7 minutes. Old Ram's still chuffing over here. And I'm trying to hold it in. I'm squeezing for dear life. When I tell you, I could have made buttons in that rock. I was squeezing so hard. Please don't let me shit myself. Oh, if I shit myself, he's for sure going to throw me off the mountain. Please don't let me shit myself. And what comes out then is one of those loud squeaker farts. So a little like an elephant that blew too much. When I farted, the devil got worked up. He jumped up on the hind legs and leapt. I didn't know what these things can do. When I tell you this thing looked like it cleared 20 feet, oh, another little rock about this big, and there was that sound. This is Billy, keep me off his damn mouth. Fart saved my life, saved me from the devil. That's how I'm going to tell the story. I don't even think we stayed the rest of the night. I think we rode the horses back down that night because this shit got too real. When it started getting cold, it started snowing out there on them dirt roads. Billy got the bright idea to take the other hood, the bent up hood, off the other Nissan hardbody, and we'd hold a rope. We'd tie a rope to the hood, tie a rope to the back of the truck, and take turns driving, pulling each other around on that hood in the snow all around them roads, them great roads. Boy, then Jim got into action. Jim come out there. Jim had a 75 Ford hood, a big old, that's a sled, baby. And he welded some chain onto it. We hooked the chain to the back of his highboy, and Jim started dragging us around, which is good because after me and Billy pulled each other about 4 times with the Nissan, we decided we weren't allowed to drive for each other anymore, because when I was on that sled, Billy come around one of them corners, sent that sled into that grade. And I took a trip through some cactus plants. I was a little hot with Billy, so it was my turn to drive. I jumped him off every grade around there. And then the girls got involved and said, you and Billy can't drive each other anymore. We'll take turns driving you. And then them girls like to kill us. We were so happy when Jim got involved, got his truck out there, because Jim drive like he had some sense. We could all pile up on that hood and go for a ride and have fun. It was a good time, man. It's just, you know, just Colorado country shit, you know, sliding around on a truck hood in the snow. And somebody's probably weeping and gnashing their teeth right now about that 75 Ford hood we destroyed. And you know what? We had a good time doing it, bro. I think we run a hole right in it from the rocks and stuff. I used to be scared of the dark. I'm not so bad anymore, but I used to be real bad scared of the dark. And Billy never could believe I was scared of the dark, big as some bitch as I was. He's like, boy, just a big old boy like you, I couldn't believe you scared of the dark. One night, Billy decided to play a prank on me. Me and Billy get back. I went and helped him with a drywall job. We went and got some parts for the Jeep. We got back to his trailer. And I thought Tori was still back at our place. And Elkie was in the kitchen. She said, hey, our lights are out right now. The batteries are dead. Can you go get that big... Me and Billy were going to go get water. We're going to go get a tank, get the water tank filled. Can you go get that big cooler out of there so y'all can get some ice too? This long dark hallway, and one thing I really hated in the dark was open doors. Open doors in the dark terrified me. I'd watched too many haunted movies. Grandma was a witch. I grew up scared of that shit. And I could see that orange igloo cooler down there. I went down there to get it. Just about the time I grabbed that cooler and turned around, Tori jumped out of one of those empty rooms and yelled. And I went into full batshit fight mode and started running. And I was hauling ass down that. And Billy said it terrified him because he was in the living room and they were waiting to laugh at it. But then he just saw me hauling ass towards him, arms and cooler flailing. And he's like, I didn't know what to do. And I tripped where the threshold, where the carpet threshold was. I caught my foot on that threshold. And I went right through the wall of that trailer house, right through the paneling, right through the sheet metal, tore a big old hole in the trailer house. Boom! Old 70s trailer house, right through the wall. There's a Jerry Wayne size hole in this wall, which is a good size hole. And when I left Colorado, that hole was still there. Billy had put plywood up over both sides of it and drywalled the inside of it. Billy said, I'd never believe in my life anybody could be that scared of the dark, but you ran through my wall. I'm never going to scare you in the dark again. I promise I'll never play a prank again. Billy had my back a couple times, man. I was a little wild by then. I've been doing that repo business. I'd had my head knocked around a bunch then, there was a very brief period of time where I liked fighting. And this is part of that brief period. I was angry. I like getting in some shit with somebody every once in a while. And the sheriff there had a nephew and his friends. They were the little cool dickheads, entitled dickheads in that little town of Blanca, Colorado. And one day, sheriff's nephew almost ran over. What I did is, I gotta tell you this part first. So, Tori was wanting a car, and there was an old First Nations dude out there. His name was Charlie too, I think. He was a Korean War vet. And he drove a M38, old M30, I think it's an M38 little old Jeep, you know, those little war Jeeps. And he used to love to sit out there on the switchbacks on Saturday when the guys in the Jeeps and the big tires showed up to start hauling ass up and down the switchbacks, and he'd bet them $25, $50 he could beat them to the first switchback. And they'd take that bet and they'd rev that old V8 Jeep up, brum, 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 go to spinning tires and heading up the switchback, and old Charlie would take that M38 and just drive right up the side of the switchback. And that old four-banger, he'd beat them there every time. He'd be waiting on them when they got up there. He'd be mad as hell. He done found him a trail. He did it every time. He'd take him folks' money. I like Charlie. I got to hanging out with him. And he was a conspiracy theorist, surprise, surprise, and he was constantly spent all his time with telescopes, and something had happened out there one time. Supposedly a bunch of cows got turned inside out or something, and he was convinced it wasn't aliens that did it if it really happened, that it was the military. And you talk about guys looking for the black helicopters all the time. That was Charlie. He was just convinced our military was out there turning cows inside out for sport and making people believe there was aliens for no reason. And he had a whole thing about the Denver airport, and yeah, Charlie had a bunch. But he had a bunch of cars. Charlie had a bunch of cars, and one of the cars he had was a 1969 Ford Galaxy 500 convertible. Dark maroon, rag top, white top, had a decent top on it. Run and drove like a dream, and he sold me that car for $2,500. I think I gave him $1,500 down, and I was paying the rest off. And I bought that car for Tori so she'd have a car. And she loved that car. She loved it. She thought it was the most beautiful car ever. Boy, she'd get behind the wheel of that thing, go to Alamosa, and you wouldn't see her for a couple hours. And maybe that was my mistake. It was buying her some freedom, because she started getting a little wild again. Quit her job, started running around with one of her old friends, a couple of her old friends from Alamosa. I mean, if I'm honest myself, I knew what was going on by that point. But before that happened, we were going into Blanca one day from the house, and that sheriff's nephew almost ran us over. And she was driving. I told her to pull into his driveway behind him. I hopped out of the car and I went, rattled his cage a little bit. He was taller than me. He had a couple pounds on me. I didn't care. I like that kind of stuff back then. I don't like it now. I'm too old for it now. It takes too long to feel better again. But I jumped up in his face, told him he needed to watch how he's driving. To his credit, he was kind of apologetic. And it was over. I was like, all right, man. I started walking back to the car. Tori decided to start running her mouth. You're lucky he didn't kick your ass. You're lucky he didn't. And I'm like, what the shit are you doing? Did you not see his other two friends come out of the house? This situation is over. And he's like, and he hollered at her to shut the F up, and I wasn't going to take that. And I turned around, and when I did, his friend shoved me, and I hit the gravel. I fell down and hit the gravel, and I grabbed a hold of that, grabbed a handful of that sand, and just, his friend was kind of talking trash to me, and he was walking up, and I just threw that sand in an arc in both their faces. And I jumped up because I knew I wasn't going to win 2-on-1. They were both bigger than me. And I hopped my ass back into that old Galaxy. I told her, I said, mash that gas, book. And she did. She went straight up to that little store that we was headed to. When we get to the store, go in there and do our stuff, and well, here comes trouble. Here they pull up his little hot rod, and him and his two buddies jump out, and they're waiting for me outside the store. They're going to catch me in the parking lot. And I said, no, I ain't coming out there, man. I know what it's going to be. It's going to be 3-on-1. It's going to be a beating. By then I knew I wasn't no Remo Williams. You know what I mean? I could handle one dude, maybe. But boy, 3 sure wasn't going to work out. And then, against my better judgment, I walked outside the store because I knew the shit wasn't going to end. And me and old boy squared off, and he was up in my face talking shit and telling me what all he's going to do. And I was being kind of quiet because I didn't know how the situation was about to go, but I was pretty sure I was about to get a beating from 3 other dudes. And his 2 friends had walked around behind me. So I knew what was about to happen. I knew. I wasn't surprised. Well, I was surprised because I thought I knew what was about to happen. But he went to shove me. When he did, I shoved him back, and somebody grabbed me on my shoulder, and then I heard this sound. It was the funniest punch sound ever. It's like, poof! And whatever hand was on my shoulder let go, and I heard another dude, what the hell? Oh! and I heard somebody else hit the ground. Billy Colson had been in that store renting some movies and seen all this and went back into prison mode and snuck out there behind them while they were behind me. And when old boy put his hand on me, Billy rattlesnaked him in the temple. I mean, just from like the guy never saw it coming, just a punch out of nowhere right in the temple. Put him down. He was trying to figure out if red was red and green was green anymore. And then Billy had launched on the other dude, was whooping the fire out of him. And the ringleader of the bunch took off and got in his car and left. We jumped in our cars, left. Billy's worried. He's on parole. He ain't trying to get locked back up, lose his freedom. I tell him, I said, I'm going to tell him I don't know nothing about you. And sure enough, old sheriff shows up out there at Jim Carroll's. And I tell him everything that happened. He said, well, that's my nephew. I'm going to go straighten him out. But I'm just, do we need to press any charges? I was like, I don't think we need to press no charges. I think everybody, he goes, well, I wouldn't want your buddy out there to get hung up. Like, he knew Billy was on parole. He wasn't stupid. But old Billy came through for me. He rattlesnaked the piss out of that dude. That was the funniest sounding punch. I just turned around and catch that guy falling, man. Billy rattlesnaked him right in the temple. And I ain't never felt bad about that in life. Tori gets that car, she gets that freedom. I get the suspicion she starts using again. She's got the sniffles, and she ain't never got no money, and she's asking me for money all the time. I've been down that path before. I knew the signs. And I had been clean for a good while at that point, and she showed up one night and brought me some, trying to get me to do it. And that's when I knew that I had to get away from her, because I was like, I'll just end up right back in this train wreck, and this just ain't worth it anymore. When we got in a big old fight, she pulled up, and I knew she'd been out running around partying with her friends. First off, she's driving a car. She's lit on the highway. Pretty sure she's doing drugs again. Nose is all red. She's all unhinged again like she'd get. She pulls up in the driveway in that Galaxy convertible, and I walked right out there in the driveway in front of it. It's still running. Said, I've had it with this. You've had it with what? She'd play dumb. And then she'd start lying. And I was like, nah, I know what's going on. I've had it with this. I'm leaving. I'm leaving you. I'm going back to Texas. Go figure my life out, but I'm done with this. She said, you can't leave me. I said, I'm leaving you. I promise you I'm leaving you. She said, I'll be damned if you're going to leave me. I said, I'm telling you right now, I'm gone. Come morning time, I'm going to go stay at Billy and Elkie's house tonight. I'm going to get them to give me a ride to a bus station. I'm gone. I'm done with this crap. What about your truck? What about all I was like, man, I'm just going to give all that crap to your dad. I don't care. I want out. I need out of this situation, because you're going to drag me right back down to what I was doing that was already killing me. I ain't trying to do that. And I'm glad I had the foresight to do that. I wish I'd had the foresight to have this argument with her when I wasn't standing in front of that Ford Galaxy convertible. Because she went unhinged. I saw it in her eyes, and she floored it. At some point, I said something that pissed her off more than she could take. And I heard that, boy, that old 390, I would never rev up. And that Galaxy lurched forward at me, and I tried to jump, but if you can imagine, I ain't got much of a vertical. About 3-4 inches on a good day. And I tried to jump, and that old car hit me right in that jacked up knee. And I flipped over the hood of the car and off the windshield and landed in the gravel. And it had the big window, convertible top. It had like a little extra window back here, I think, or over here. I don't know. When I come off the ground, I punched one of those windows and broke it. Shattered it in a million pieces. All over her and me. And I was like, oh, good. You make me a person I don't like. And I left that night. Was it that night? No, I think my knee was jacked up. I'll tell you this, her stepdad, Jim, come out there on the porch. He said, Jay, you want me to call the law on her? He was going to call the law on his own right? He knew she was unhinged. You want to call the law on her? I said, no, Jim, I just need to get the hell out of here. He said, all right, you want me to give you a ride? I know your knee's probably jacked up again. Want me to give you a ride down to Billy's? I said, yeah. So me and Jim talked about it on the way to Billy's. I said, Jim, if you'll get all that paperwork on that truck, and I'm just gonna give you all my tools and the trailer house we bought and all that stuff, I'm gonna put it all in your name. And I did. The next morning, Jim come down there and met me with the paperwork. I signed everything over to Jim, title, everything. And that night, Elkie, she had a little Volkswagen Beetle, and she gave me a ride all the way to Denver in that Volkswagen Beetle. It was snowing, boy, we like to never made it to Denver in that Volkswagen Beetle. That little car was a little Super Beetle, like a 74. Boy, that little car, but it's automatic. Boy, that thing just almost couldn't handle in mountains. And the whole time, Elkie, like, you sure you can't fix this? If you can't fix this, I'm on your side. But if you can fix this, maybe you shouldn't leave. I was like, I don't want to fix it. I can't be around that stuff she's doing, because I'll start doing it again too. I just know me. I gotta get out of this. And I caught a flight back to Houston. And I like to tell you, I never saw Tori again after that, but that just ain't the truth. But none of the other sightings were good either. But eventually I did have to go get a lawyer, get divorced from her, get myself out of that. And that was the best $750 I ever spent in my life. I think all the money I spent, I never spent a better $750 than that. Ooh. For freedom to come so cheap, baby. And I kept in contact with Elkie and Billy. I would talk to Jim every once in a while. I'd call him, talk to him. Jim would tell me, oh, I got that old Jeep truck running pretty good nowadays, man. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. But I go drive around every once in a while, think about you. We were tight, you know. Elkie, Billy goes off the rails. Him and Elkie get pregnant. She goes back to Florida to get medical care. And Billy, left to his own devices, goes a little off the rails. And Elkie decides to leave him. Billy gets into huffing paint, man. From what he's huffing gas and huffing paint, from what Jim told me. I guess he didn't have no money. He was doing whatever he could to get high as cheap as he could. In fact, Jim sold Billy my old Jeep truck. He sold Billy my old Jeep truck. Billy had a plan. Billy was going to Missouri, and he was going to get lost somewhere in the woods, Appalachian Trail or some bullcrap. I don't know where it all runs. He was just going to go live in the woods for the rest of his life. And the last time anybody saw Billy, Billy was behind the seat of that Jeep J10 pickup, that orange J10 pickup of mine. And Jim said he had him a whole fresh carton of spray paint, and he had a smile on his face, and he was headed to Missouri. He's going to go be the white trash Christopher McCandless. Into the wild, baby. Into the Missouri. And, you know, if you guys are big hikers out there in Missouri and you're ever just walking along some distant trail and you spy off in the woods a rusty and orange 1977 Jeep J10 with maybe a bunch of spray cans in the bed of it, give me a call. Might be some Billy left in there too. Oh, what happened, old Billy? I can tell you, when I got home, I immediately went back to NDT and bought myself a Datsun 280Z, but you already know that story. You've heard all that one. All right, man. Let's dig into some comments real quick before we get out of here. How's that sound? I got them loaded up on my phone. Who else texted me? Ooh, I finally got an appointment to get my ears checked. I got blowed out ears. I think I'm about to get some hearing aids. I'm excited about that. Go to my notes here. captured all these comments earlier. Here we go. This is from @1D Shoe. Man, when you said old truck's getting worse and worse looking as I bounce it off shit all around Milwaukee, I just lost it. Cracked up. I'm from the Northeast, so I grew up in snow similar to that. Not exactly the same because they have the lake effect out there, but it's almost a rite of passage to damn near redecorate the inside of your trousers when you hit the brakes in the snow and the vehicle keeps going where it wants. Boy, first time it happened to me, it surprised the piss out of me. And I ain't kidding when I tell you that truck had so many different color paint swatches on it from bouncing off shit, it looked like the inside of a Sherwin-Williams. At Collins Music. This was a real enlightening episode. Hearing about the youthful mistakes of others makes me more aware of my own and how best to take care of them when they occur. Damn good stuff, Jerry. Thank you. Man, I hope you listened to this episode. This whole episode was don't do this. The whole episode was just a big don't do this. If I can tell you anything, you learn anything this episode, don't do none of this. Don't feed a stripper breakfast. That's where it all started. At Peter Madeira 8807, my man, you called out my favorite American whiskey, Uncle Nearest. Forget about it. Next time you're getting free drinks, try Lagavulin or Oban from across the pond. Yummy. Bro, I'm a faithful follower of Ron Swanson. I'm a big fan of Lagavulin. You can't be a devotee of the great and mighty Ron Swanson and not appreciate Lagavulin. All right, guys, I hope you like the new format. We just changed it around a little bit. Another big thank you to the Everyone Racers podcast. Thank you guys for the support. Some of our new sponsors are coming on board here this month, actually. We've got some stuff coming. We got a comic book sponsor and a whiskey distillery. And boy, my manager, she's just been out there working, bro. Of course, this is Friday. I'm going to get this edited. And then all my mind's going tomorrow is the, you guys, this will be after the fact, but Saturday is the Hot Wheels Legends Tour. I've been asked to be a judge, and I'm super psyched about the opportunity. I'm really hoping, I've got a lot of anxiety about it, honestly, and I'm hoping it all goes well. I get anxiety about stuff like this. It's a big opportunity, and I don't want to screw it up, because God knows I've done a little bit of that over the years. As always, I'm rooting for you. I really am. I hope mostly what you learn from me is not to do this shit. If that's the most you learn from me, that's the most important thing. Or do it, but just have the sense to understand what's happening to you when you do it. I don't know where we're going to go next week. This one just came out of the blue. I wasn't even going to do this, and then I decided I had to be honest about it and do it. And so who knows where we're going next week? Who knows what time period? I like keeping it loose, keeping it a mystery. Of course, I love you guys in the chat. Thank you for hanging out with me on Sunday. Hope you don't mind the new time frame. It's just the way I got to do it for a little while. The other time frame is interfering with one of my blocks of being able to get stuff done. Of course, like and share, recommend it to your friends. I always appreciate you guys downloading it all over the world. God bless you. Thank you. Don't think I'm gonna figure out this Nintendo Wii controller. It's real broke inside. I think that one's a goner. Might just have to find him a replacement, or I might get on YouTube, see if I can find somebody that's fixed this before and can tell me where to go. I just don't want to go any farther and damage anything. Take me to the magic of the morning on a glory night, where the children of tomorrow dream away. In the wind of change,